welcome back. I'm Thomas Mooney, and you're listening to New Slang. We're on episode 190 with Mike Harmeier of Mike and the Moonpies and album producer Adam Odor. The Moonpies are releasing a new record tomorrow. That would be Tuesday, August 10th. It is their 8th studio record, and it's called One to Grow On, which this record didn't take too long to get familiar with. It grew on me pretty quickly. I went down home this past weekend, and it was pretty much the only thing I listened to the whole way over and back, which is a pretty apt setting for this record. Much of this record, it revolves around the central character who Mike created during this past year. In short, it's kind of this amalgamation of all these working everymen who Mike has been around his entire life. It's the idea of this guy who is driving this old 1985 Chevy pickup that Mike has. A lot of that, it revolves around him in the cab of his truck. It's the radio and the road and the job sites and the local joints that he's visiting. It's all those things that you think about from one spot to another. Maybe you're going home after a long day of work. So I'm not sure if there's many commutes that are in that 10 to 15 minute range anymore. That's what I kind of grew up around. Obviously a little bit more of a small town vibe. This is obviously me being nostalgic in some sense, but I really do feel like there was times that you felt like you kind of solved all the problems of the universe in those 10 minutes. Definitely not. But at minimum, there's sometimes that momentary satisfaction or that momentary bliss. All's right just for those moments. And a lot of times you can just feel like you put the problems of work or at home on pause while you're in that cab. Anyway, this new one from Mike and the Moonpies is just really what the doctor ordered. I hesitate to call it a reset for them or anything like that, but in many ways, One to Grow On is another meat and potatoes country record from them. Obviously, I love Cheap Silver and Solid Country Gold. I love Touch of You, the lost songs of Gary Stewart. They pushed the envelope. They were creative, inventive. They scratched those itches that you didn't actually even know you wanted scratching. They were bold and decisive steps that challenged the status quo. I loved that. They loved working on those records, and I think a lot of fans really appreciated all that hard work that went into those. One to Grow On, it doesn't have all the set parameters of those records, and in many respects, it feels more like a natural heir apparent to Steak Night at the Prairie Rose. Obviously, that doesn't mean that this record didn't have its own challenges. We talk about those during this episode, matter of fact. At the same time, it doesn't mean that this record is them mailing it in either. I genuinely say that this is really them at their peak at this precise moment. As far as their playing, the arranging, the writing, the storytelling, it's really some of the best work they've done to date. And maybe that all says more about the Moonpies as a collective than anything else. That even when they aren't cutting lost Gary Stewart songs, when they're not recording at Abbey Road in London, England, they're still pushing the envelope, that they're still delivering the best country music at the moment. Again, One to Grow On by Mike and the Moonpies. It's out Tuesday, August 10th. Today's presenting partner is our pals over at Desert Door Texas Soto. If you've been listening to New Slang for really any amount of time, you'll know that Desert Door is one of my all-time favorite premium, high-quality spirits. If you haven't or aren't sure what exactly a Soto is, I'm going to let you in on a little secret that's going to up the game on your liquor cabinet. For starters, the best reference point that I can point you to is to think about a tequila or a mezcal. Do you feel that Western desert, that Texas ruggedness? Okay, Soto is like that, but a little bit more refined, smooth, and fragrant. It intrigues the palate and offers these hints of vanilla and citrus. There's an earthiness that often sends me right back to my Trans-Pecos and far west Texas roots. There's plenty to love about Desert Door. For me, it all starts right there. A close second is just how versatile Desert Door really is. You can go full highbrow and experiment with concocting a variety of cocktails that call for muddling fresh fruit, sprigs of thyme, sticks of cinnamon. It's perfect for that world. If you're a little bit more down home, if you've just rolled up the sleeves of your denim Wrangler button-up, it's perfect for that as well. If you're just desiring something that's short and sweet, it hits the mark every time. Desert Door is genuine and authentically West Texan. It's inherently West Texan. They harvest Soto plants out in the wild and are knowledgeable conservationists at heart. That's obviously something incredibly important to me. They shine a light on what makes West Texas special and unique and worth preserving and keeping it safe from exploitation. Right now, you can find Desert Door all over Texas, Colorado, Tennessee, and there's budding numbers in places like New Mexico, Arizona, California, and Georgia. Best thing you can do is to check out desertdoor.com to find where Desert Door is locally. Again, that's desertdoor.com. All right, let's keep this one really, really short. If this is your first time listening to New Slang, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you're over on iTunes, leave one of those 5-star reviews. Check out the New Slang merch store over at newslangpodcast.bigcartel.com. Over there we have t-shirts, koozies, coffee mugs, and all kinds of other stuff. Everything I just mentioned, it will be in the show notes. All right, let's get into it. Here is Mike and Adam. Let's go and start up. And we have a new Moonpies record now coming out just on Tuesday. And for starters, like that's old school. Going
Yeah.
to the Tuesday release date, One to Grow On, the 8th studio record. It always feels like there's a new Moonpies record on the horizon. I guess what I gather on this one is that you guys have kind of created that everyman blue collar character to follow on this record. I guess like where originally did that kind of the creation of that character start, Mike? Where do you feel like you first started feeling like that's the direction you guys wanted to go with this one?
I think when I started building that Hour on the Hour song, and because that song is really like, it's kind of a guy that doesn't really care about listening to the country songs I care about listening to. I was like, maybe this isn't me.
Yeah.
And I started to kind of track that down a little bit. And I had like some other songs that I knew we were going to use, that like the Brother song was like an older song, but it was like a story song. And so that's not really me either. That's a character. I was like, well, maybe I can do that a little bit more. And then I really started to build this narrative around this truck, this 85 Chevy. And then I was like, okay, so this truck kind of feels to me what these songs feel like. It has the same aesthetic to it. So then I was like, okay, so I'm the third owner of this truck. Who's the guy that bought this truck in 85? And like, what was he doing in that truck? What was he listening to in that truck? He was doing like construction work. I can tell by the way the bed's fucked up. Like, I mean, so I started to kind of just dive into doing that. And then it wasn't really till we were done, we had most of the songs done. It's like, if we sequence this right, it kind of moves in a linear narrative with this one guy. So we kind of built it from scratch after I kind of figured out, well, maybe this isn't the guy maybe I'm not the guy I'm talking about. I think.
Yeah. No, I mean, like that, once I guess I realized that it was kind of circling this kind of character, it all made sense. Like, I listened to the record a few times beforehand, but yeah, you do go back to that guy sitting in the truck essentially time and time again, whether that's obviously like the paycheck to paycheck, kind of blowing his money and living. There's a lot
of just like, it seems like that character sitting in his truck. There seems like to be a lot of that thing about it. I think that's what kind of, I didn't maybe necessarily mean to do it that way, but I was in that mindset where I was like, what do I want to listen to if I'm driving down the highway in West Texas or something in that truck? What am I listening to? And, who am I? So I kind of started to build it that way. Now, I mean, I can totally understand if you when you heard the record before, you knew that narrative, it still flows as kind of like it's me or like the normal records do. But I think, like you say, once you get hip to that idea that we were kind of going for that, I think it makes the records, it makes more sense a little bit to me.
Yeah. And, like there's that Hour on the Hour song. I just love the imagery of that guy kind of like being stuck in the truck, but avoiding the one thing that is the entertainment in the truck, the radio. Clearly, that is such a and I feel like that's my favorite song on the record, and it has that build up, and then that release, that tension all goes up in, I guess, whatever the third minute or whatever. How fun was it building up that song where you have all that rising ascension, and then you just have that kind of like just the release of it, and you really go off on them damn vocals there.
Yeah. It was I mean, it was a linear song really to begin with. I never really had like a solid bridge for that, because like the vocals over that bridge part where I'm singing are also just basically the same thing as the verse. I just, up the ante a little bit on the vocal thing, until it hits that solo. And then Zach crushed it with that steel ride right there. It's so good. He really Zach was really good this time about not that he's not before, but, selling, listening to the melody line that I'm singing and what I'm talking about, and really selling that on steel. I thought he did a really good job. But yeah, that song was, it's a lot of these songs are kind of linear on the record, but that one for sure, it had to go somewhere. I think we did a couple of different versions where, we would bring it back down at that part or whatever, but I don't know. Adam really kind of took the reins on arranging that one, I think. Isn't that right, Adam?
Yeah. Well, we basically just wanted to do as we're telling the story, to really have those, to let the music be moody and Mike really tell you where it's going vocally. So for that one, it's building up to that final chorus. The bridge is huge. He sings right into that steel solo. The steel solo's doubled, if it's so good, play it twice. And, he's doing a stereo thing, and then finish it off with the baritone. And then Mike, when you don't think the song could get even bigger, Mike takes that final chorus and just jumps up in his melody and just takes it out. And I think that's what we try to do, that with a few things like this, Social Drinkers. Hey, got loose there. Social Drinkers too, it's we want to take these cool linear stories but take you all over the place, like a Scorsese film or something like that. Wanted to really make it cinematic. I think that's what we really wanted with this record, was to be a very cinematic record.
I agree. And Social was the perfect example as the other one, because that one is a total linear song. I mean, it changes keys every time that we come back around, and it builds up to that same thing. And it just sounds like there was a lot of moments when we were tracking it. I was like, let's try to make it as epic, as possible at the end, where everything builds to this giant crescendo. Brother does the same kind of thing. Man, I don't know. Yeah. They really worked out. It is cinematic to me as well.
You mentioned Scorsese. I was thinking Paul Thomas Anderson, Boogie Nights, how they would track the party scenes. They'd go in and go to one room, come back out, go out to the outside, by the pool, circle around the pool, coming back. And you just kind of get a really great idea of how that house in Boogie Nights is set up. That's very much kind of what I was thinking with Social Drinkers, because you're kind of visiting. I'm telling you guys, that's the music video.
I like this, man, because I love tracking shots. You cannot put a tracking shot that I don't love. And if the record plays out like a tracking shot, then I'm 100% on board.
Oh gosh, yeah, we nailed it. Holy.
Yeah, that's awesome. The so one of the, I guess that, going back to Hour on the Hour, that one line where you're I'm paraphrasing here, about I don't need no troubadour, blah 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 blah, walking out the door. That one right there is just, I don't know. It just epitomizes that song in such a way where a lot of times, you guys have always done, these honky tonk songs, these country songs that, if you're just listening along, they sound great. But that song right there, that line specifically, you have a lot of emotional weight, I feel, in the way you deliver that line. And I don't know, it's just it's really, really great.
That is one of the things. I appreciate you saying that, because I think about that a lot. It's hard whenever you're writing a song, you can write a verse and a chorus and a verse and a chorus, but then when you get to the bridge, you need to sum up the entire thing in 2 lines or something like that. You have to close the door on the whole thing right there. And that's one of the first times I think in our songs that I felt really good about. That encapsulates the whole idea of the song. You could have just that bridge and understand what the entire song is about. So I was really happy that turned out that way. So thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think like we've talked a lot over the years. We've talked often about movies and music, and if it's one thing that's always come back is like the Wire, and I tweeted about it earlier. Is that like a straight Wire reference, or
No,
is
so
that
I've been racking my brain trying to figure out which one is the Wire.
It's the Wire. Yeah, because we are Wire fans, and I think subconsciously it's always going to be in there.
They're like, Wire is maybe the only one show that everybody in the band likes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Growing Pains, and it's you kind of switch it up where Omar, like one of the things Omar always returns to is a man's got to have a code.
Yeah.
And so like that first line is like a paraphrase of that line. So like when I first heard it, I was like, did these guys just throw in a Wire reference, or is this like just something subconsciously gotten into there?
That was subconscious. That totally makes sense though.
But it totally makes sense. Yes.
That checks out 100%.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that you guys are like, shit, where is that line?
I've been thinking of me and Adam. That's why we were on the phone when we got on this call. It was like we were trying to talk about where the hell is that Wire
reference? Because of course we would, but like, what did we do? And and of course it's an Omar line.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I like the idea of, when did I tweet that at? Yesterday.
Yeah.
And you guys just kind of having like a group call, and you just like assigning seasons. There's 5 guys in the band. Like everyone gets a season. Adam, you have to go through the entire thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Like just proofread over.
I think it has definitely inspired a rewatch again.
Already. Oh yeah. Cause I mean, we're going to be out for, almost 2 months. So it's just like,
we're like watching The Wire on the bus the entire tour.
Yeah. Just having The Wire going.
Yeah. I know, like for fans out there, it's like, you guys thought this was the concept record. The next one, just like all about Baltimore. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Or is this McNulty? McNulty's kind of an everyman, a common man.
He is the everyman. He is he is our character.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, like something I wanted to talk about is, like the last few records have had more of a specific kind of sound and feel that felt like you guys, obviously they fall within that Moonpies catalog, but still, like the Gary Stewart tribute record was very much these are lost Gary Stewart songs. Cheap Silver, there's the Abbey Road aspect, the cosmopolitan country, the strings and the horns, all that kind of stuff. And those feel like, side roads. This record, maybe, I think perhaps feels like you guys kind of just going back to the honky tonk record, if you will. It feels like if this is the linear path from, I guess, like Steak Night, where those other ones are maybe like little pit stops. Did you feel like this was like just going to be, the next record had to be kind of like a, meat and potatoes country honky tonk record, kind of maybe going back and hitting a little bit of a reset?
I mean, there was that thought, but I'm not sure this is the record we intentionally were going to make at the time anyway, when we were setting out to make another record anyway. But we were making it back at the Yellow Dog again. So we were kind of back at the home of the Steak Night thing. So that definitely influenced that. I don't know. I was talking about how a lot of lately, I guess the past few records have been kind of victim of circumstance records. Like the Cheap Silver record came because we were, we had this idea, and it so happened that we were going to be going over there to tour and we could make it all work. The Gary record came about because we had the songs and we were going to kind of make that record. But then when the quarantine thing happened, then we were like, well, let's finish that record and do it that way. And then, this one, I was sitting at home writing about the kind of things I used to write about, because I'm kind of back in that zone again. So I think, I couldn't have, I don't think I really meant to do it that way, or we meant to do it that way, but it's another victim of circumstance kind of to me. and I'm glad that it worked out that way. And I do agree that it's a little bit back to basics of what the band was kind of about before. And I don't think we really had a sound in mind other than just playing to what the songs were and kind of building that character through the sound of the record.
This episode is in part brought to you by Charlie Stout Photography. Charlie Stout has long been a great buddy of mine, and for as long as I've known him, he's always had a good eye for ideas, for lines in a song, and notably, an eye for what makes a great photograph. Yes, we're gonna roll with that tried and true cliche about a great photographer having a good eye. But it's cliche for a reason. More often than not, it means it's true. Right now, I want y'all to head on over to charliestout.com to get an idea of what I'm talking about. While you're at it, go give him a follow on Instagram and Twitter at Charlie Stout. Right now, he has about 50 photographs for sale on charliestout.com, with a vast majority of those being landscapes and sky shots of West Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. The American Southwest, if you will. A lot of cacti and clouds, windmills and open roads, sunsets and stardust. He captures a lot of what I love about West Texas and these dry, arid climates. That's mainly that vast emptiness that can really make you feel small. The depth and the weight and the intensity, it's all in there. Right now, he's doing a special on his prints. Each week, he releases a new photo, and for 1 week only, that photograph is at a special introductory rate. For just $25, you'll get an 8.5 by 11. That's just about half off the regular price. For $75, you can get a 13 by 19, and for $110, you can get a 17 by 22. After the week, they go back to regular prices, which are still an absolute steal if you ask me. Also, just a pro tip, keep a watchful eye out on his Twitter. He's consistently posting one-offs, errors, and randoms on there that are for sale that are in the flash sale variety. Again, that is at Charlie Stout for Twitter and Instagram. Head on over to charliestout.com, grab a signed print, buy a record, get yourself some nature sounds and some nature shots. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and being a little more like not as strict on the, okay, this is a 5-piece band or 6-piece band. You know, this is like, okay, we want to add a little extra stuff, and we want to have some guests on here, like more like real, like true guests, and do a little more produced, if you will. You know, double some things up, or add some things that may not be in the live show, but you won't miss. But just to give that sound, give it a bigger sound. And I think we came into this just throwing songs out there. Like Mike had all these ideas, and we just demoed, and we just started with demoing, and I don't know, there's like 20 some odd songs, and then it started to narrow down, and we're like, okay, what works together? And we started doing that. And then it was okay, this would have been cool, like if we were making the Steak Night record, but man, this song there's just something about it. We're getting there, but we're not quite there. So we have the time. We don't know when we're going to tour again. So let's go back in the studio and try, take what we did, but make it better. Whether it's, this record was the toying around with chord changes and melody ideas, and even going back to like the song Brother. There's so many versions of Brother that we've had since it was written years and years ago. I mean, there's more of a bluegrass version and like a faster country version, and there was a straighter one. There was a funkier one that has strings on it from Abbey Road that didn't make sense for that song, and then finally, it kind of hit. I was listening to a podcast with Bootsy Collins, and he was talking, I think, to Questlove, and they're talking about just getting out of their comfort zone and listening to other stuff and everything, and what random things will inspire something that not necessarily goes with what you're working on. And that's when I was just thinking randomly. I was running, listening to the podcast, and I was like, man, Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, Gordon Lightfoot, like, what if we just take it and make it like an epic song with a big hook rather than trying to like, like tell the story, but then have these cool musical hooks and stuff. And then immediately, I called Mike up and I was just like, dude. And then next thing you know, he's sending me these ideas back. And I was like, yes, now we're going somewhere. Like, I think we finally found it that beats just Mike with an acoustic guitar.
Yeah, once you found that pocket from the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald thing, that really changed the game on that song, because it changed it to where we could really build that song in like you say, like an epic way. But I think there's a version from way back years ago where I was kind of trying to do the same thing that I did with Social Drinkers, where it would change keys every time to build up.
Yeah, we do have one of those.
So that really kind of fixed that problem, with me. Is that was a good, and I don't even like Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I don't like that song at all. but that really solved the problem on our song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, no. I was just saying, just ideas like that. And so like the whole process of this record was so different for us because we could track the whole thing and have it like what we would think of a long time ago as being done, but then being like, man, well, what if we did this? A lot of late night calls or text messages and being like, hey, that's cool, but it could be cooler, and we just did a lot of that with this record because we had the time to, and we could. And it wasn't stuff. I think a lot of that stuff gets worked out on the road, and we weren't on the road. So we weren't around each other 5 or 6 days a week and toying around with ideas during sound check, or, that dead space before showtime and there's guitars in the Sprinter or in the bus. It's like we didn't have any of that going on for a year. So it was a lot of phone calls, Zoom calls. Hey, what's this idea? Oh, do this, and what we started with the Gary record, with Catlin and Zach being able to toy around with things at home to record, they were just getting ideas together. And so when they would walk in, they would have some ideas, and then we would build and, bounce the ideas off one another and, build from there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's obviously this past year, the way people have been stuck at home has, it's either been a good thing or maybe like a hindrance on the recording. I think if you were, like a young band, it could be very, very, if you're a young band trying to make a record during this time and we're recording remotely or recording, in these very, very small isolated pockets, it could be, a little hard or a little daunting. With y'all though, like I almost feel like, having that space, since you guys know each other already, having just that space was a good thing. You mentioned kind of like how all this probably would have happened during sound checks and, conversations like that. And, you obviously you can catch a lot of just the moment, everyone in the same room filling each other out and like some magic happens. Right. But maybe like in this, like you still are able to capture that magic just because you guys know each other so well that maybe the time has been a little bit of like the marinating process.
Yeah, I was like super torn on that whole thing. Like, like as far as the situation with being home or whatever, that, I was kind of cool with that situation anyway. I mean, I had a really good year. Like, I was in a good place, other than not being able to really tour or work or whatever. But like Adam said, like we didn't know when we were going to be able to tour this record. We knew we were going to make one, but like, and we really hadn't finished touring the Silver record by the time that we stopped, and we obviously didn't tour the Gary record. So there was really like, we could wait, like, it could be 2 years before we really drop another record, and it would still totally be fine. And then I got to be where like we were going through so many edits and rewrites, and we were getting to the end of it. And I could tell like some people, I was burning out on some of the record.
I was burning out of it. Like,
yeah, like it. Sometimes I think I was thinking, well, we had too much time to do this, and it was going to hinder the thing. I mean, there's versions like that Hour on the Hour song. I wrote a completely different song like prior to that, and then I just kind of like rewrote the entire thing. Like I didn't save any of the lines. I just kind of started over from scratch on that song. So there's a whole nother song probably back there somewhere, but I couldn't tell at a lot of moments if it was a good thing or a bad thing to have so much time to be able to to really work and think about it too much. So I think if you can overthink it sometimes, and if you
Mhm.
don't stick with what comes naturally at first, then you might kind of ruin some of that song, or ruin the idea of it. So we got lucky that I think we stopped at the right time, but
Yeah.
it was touch and go there for a minute on where I was sitting with it. There's always times when I love the record, and then I hate the record, then I love the record, then I hate the record. And I think this was the biggest emotional roller coaster on a record that I've ever had, just because of the time that I had to think about it. So it was good and bad.
And just still dealing with the unknown of like, I mean, honestly, we even had a later release date for this record, but then we were like, man, we're booking all these shows for 2 months, like full on touring. And, who knows what's going to happen later. So, but these dates are happening. Let's put this record out. It just makes sense to get out there and, have something that, we're passionate about to put out there and, play for everybody. And so then we up the release time on the record when we're going to put it out, and making it happen, doing what we do, basically doing what, Mike and I are known for.
Which is just kind of just whatever happens.
Yeah. We just go with the flow.
Yeah.
But it's funny how much I think, we never were really, I don't think we were second guessing the record as much as just what's going on. And so that made us look at the record in different ways, and sometimes it was just like, is this done? Is it not done? Can we do it better? Whatever. But ultimately it was just us dealing with the fact that we didn't know what was going on in our careers. Are we going to have to do more online shows? We're going to have to, keep things going and trying to like sell more merch and stuff online? Or are we actually going to be able to go out there and do shows and stuff like that?
And let's not like totally ignore the idea that there's a lot of pressure on there. At least to me, there was a lot of pressure on this record, because it's kind of a follow-up to 2 records that were like pretty well received. I mean, 3 even, if you include State Night, but like, to follow the Cheap Silver record, it was, we had to do something. And the Gary thing really worked out well as a follow-up to that, just because we weren't trying to do anything. We were kind of, just making those songs our songs.
Yeah.
So this is like, now what are you really going to say? Now it's time to say something again. So, and we're in a social climate where saying something seems to be very important. You know what I mean? It's hard to just, make a straight honky tonk record, or just like a bottom of the barrel whiskey drinking women chasing record or whatever. So I don't know, there was a lot of pressure on that in my mind anyway, at least when I was writing.
Right. Yeah, like that makes a lot of sense there, because I'm assuming like there's some comfort with Cheap Silver and with the Gary record, where there's set parameters, right? Like there's only like you kind of know the task at hand, right? And there's probably some comfort in knowing that like this is the box in which we have created, and we're going to create in this box. Where this is kind of going back to, well, there is no box. What is the box? And here's the box that we think. And then 100 days later, just because there are endless days, how we've erased this box already, and now it's what are we trying to? Yeah. It's this year has been, it's interesting. I think I was talking with not to name drop here, but no, I was talking with he's going to have an episode pretty soon too, Garrett T. Capps, about how this year I'm interested to see like what records come out of the quarantine year, what quarantine records there are. And I want to be very specific about this. I'm not talking about records about the quarantine, but records that were created within the time frame of the quarantine, because those are 2 separate things. And I think one is significantly cooler and better than the other.
Me too.
Yes.
That was a conscious thing that I thought about during like, we started talking about press time for this record. I was like, I do not want to sell this as like, I'm talking about, I don't want to have any references to a pandemic or quarantine, anything like that. It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
Just because we were in the circumstance of making it under that circumstance, that doesn't mean that it's about that.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing that like, I think, And the comparison that I had was, right after 9/11, the Iraq War, Afghanistan, there was a very like just a certain sound and mood and feeling of a lot of those records that came out of that era, that there was clearly some record or some songs that were directly inspired by war. But there was a certain climate, there was a certain kind of like angst out of that time where, you could see that in bands like the Strokes or like Interpol or like any of those kind of bands, a certain feel. And I'm assuming, in 10 years, we'll be able to look back probably and go, oh, this was kind of these records, these songs were written during this time. And hopefully like they're not all quarantined.
Yeah, the only one that I'll mention about just to get it out of the way is the Social Drinkers thing. My deep down gut feeling was the chorus of that song. I missed the whole, bar scene, right? But then I was like, well, I'm not going to make this song about, the certain circumstance that I'm in. So, and that was another character driven thing. It's like, well, let me write it from a whole nother reason. And that was kind of a difficult thing to like how to tie that in verse wise into how do I get to this chorus where I'm not sounding like I'm just stuck at home because, all the businesses are closed or I can't go out and do my job or whatever. So that was, I had to toy with it a little bit on that specific song, but everything else, I avoided that 100%.
Yeah. With that, I can see like just a handful of other things that could pop up that applies to, like, if you're trying to be sober and you have to avoid those kind of places, maybe
that's kind of where I went with it. Like,
there's that. There's like, maybe you're a musician who stopped playing and you got like that regular day job now, or
you moved out of town, you moved far away from city life or whatever, and that's kind of where I went with it. Is like, I'm like, there was even a line that I changed that used to be like, bought a bigger house in a smaller town was one of the lines.
Yeah.
And I was that was going to be my one line to sell the reason that I'm in the situation, which I ended up changing to that. I'm never going to change the sound up here on the higher ground or whatever. It's just like, so now it's more of like a musician standpoint or something like that. So I don't know. It's a little bit vague, but I think that's a good thing. I think a lot of things on the record to be a little bit vague are good. That's what helps sells that whole character thing.
Yeah. So much self-interpretation, on this record.
That's always a great thing. I always love whenever, clearly, like I like when artists make things very specific and like, no, that's not what this is about. This is actually about this. But, once you release a song, that song becomes everyone else's song too.
Yeah.
And it kind of like, whatever, it doesn't matter what you wrote it about. It still matters, but it doesn't matter as that's not the singular idea of that song anymore.
It'll happen to me all the time. I'll have a song that I love and I know every single word to, and I'll have this entire idea of what that is about, but that really ends up being about what it's about to me, because I'll read some story about or hear some story about that song when it was written, and it has nothing to do with what I was thinking it was about. So that's a good quality in a song, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned Brother being an old song, and then you mentioned how you guys probably had what 20-30 songs, what you said, kind of within this time frame. What's the thing that was kind of added, not necessarily last second, but the thing that kind of made the cut that you didn't necessarily think was going to be there, but it snuck in maybe last second? What's like the newest thing or something like that?
Growing Pains was the last song that I wrote.
Growing Pains,
actually, because I didn't know that was very like just an acoustic driven, just me vamping that chord thing. And I was like, how are we going to do this? I don't know if it's going to fit, but thematically it fit perfectly. So like, there's got to be a way to do it. And it ended up being kind of like the title track. But that song definitely was one that I wasn't, that was like, I wrote that song after we had pretty much, I think, finished tracking everything else.
Yeah.
We came back
to cut that. Yep.
Yeah. And then maybe that Whose Side You're On song was because I had written that song for that Texas Cotton movie, and it's on the Texas Cotton soundtrack as another title called Thunder and Lightning, but it's just like me and an acoustic guitar. And I made some like electric guitar noise over some of it or something. but I wanted to rewrite. I love that song from the very beginning when I wrote it, and I wanted to try it with the band at some point. So it really kind of panned out, and it also thematically really suits the record. So I think that was kind of a late addition too. Is like, well, we had some songs that I liked, then we cut for the record, but didn't really fit at all, like that Honky Tonk Volunteer song and some other songs that we had that just weren't flying for the same idea. They sounded too much like a State Night song or something like that. And so I started to kind of dig back through other things I had written in the past to see if there's anything else that lined up, and that one stuck out to me for sure. So those two songs I think were the late additions that still fit in the mold of the record.
This episode of New Slang is brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. Blue Light has long been the heart and soul of the Lubbock singer-songwriter scene and has been a home away from home for some of Texas, Americana, country, and rock and roll's finest over the years. Talk with 99.9% of the songwriters who have come out of Lubbock and the Panhandle at large over the past 20 years, and they'll point to just how integral and necessary the Blue Light is. With live music and touring slowly but surely coming back, spots like the Blue Light are getting back to their usual ways as well. That means music every night of the week. Do you want to see that schedule? Well, I've got a few options for you. 1, go to their socials and give them a follow. That is at Blue Light Live on Twitter, at The Blue Light Live on Instagram, and of course by just searching The Blue Light Live on Facebook. They're consistently posting that week's lineup of shows, as well as those heavy hitters that ought to be on your calendar that are coming up on the horizon. 2, check out bluelightlubbock.com as well. There they have the full schedule, the cover charges, time, any of those specials that may be happening. While there, go check out their merch page. They have a wide range of hats, koozies, hoodies, sweaters, beanies, jackets, and so much more. You can, of course, get all of your merch needs when you go see your favorite band take the stage at Blue Light. Just ask the bartender and they will get you all set. Speaking of which, that's another great way of seeing who's playing there. Just go to the Blue Light. It's at 1806 Buddy Holly Avenue here in Lubbock, Texas. And of course, again, that is bluelightlubbock.com. I'll throw a link into the show notes too. Maybe I'll see you there. Okay, let's get back to the show. Yeah, you've already kind of touched on it as far as, feeling like the frustrations of, having too much time on this record, or feeling like maybe you're out there in the woods, lost in the woods, kind of where are we going with this? But, you guys also had a lot of these conversations, a lot of this back and forth, especially between you and Adam, with rewrites or different arrangement things. You already mentioned kind of going through the different iterations of Brother, but was there and you've kind of mentioned, writing a lot of different lines and replacing stuff and starting from scratch. Do you feel that this has, made you a better songwriter, but not just songwriter in I can write a song, but maybe more like storyteller, crafting the story, the linear story? Do you feel like you've come out of this, with a little bit more of a better idea on how to get the story, the narrative throughout?
I do. I feel like these are the best songs that we've written. And I've known this about myself for a while, that it takes me longer than a lot of people can kind of just, or at least it seems that way, can really just crank some songs out or whatever. And there's a lot of songs that I hear of guys that I can tell they cranked it out too, you know what I mean? And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just know for me, it takes me a few edits to get where I'm going and figure out where I'm at. So the more time that I had to do that, yeah, definitely I learned something about my own songwriting because of it. And like you say, when I write something, I demo it out on my phone. I might only have a chorus or a verse, and I send it to Adam immediately. So whenever we're pretty much co-writing everything from the very beginning of the song. So I think we got better at figuring out, where we were headed with every song. And once we got into that groove of what we were talking about on the record, we both were on the same page of where what should come next, or what kind of words I should be using. You know what I mean? Like what kind of references we're going to make, the time period that we're going to be talking about or whatever. So I think me and Adam got a lot better at co-writes because of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we could just like, it just got to a point where it was like, once we figured out the narrative we're trying to tell, and like The Vein was one of those songs where I think we went to so many different ideas of how to approach the subject and tying everything in together. And like, do we make it more obvious, less obvious? Are we literal? Are we not, and going back and forth. And then, well, in this version, that was cool. In this version, that was cool. And like, just whatever suited the song, and not, I think when it comes to that, like our walls are totally down. So we're just totally back and forth, just lyric ideas, musical ideas. Well, do this, there's, was it Brother or Growing Pains or something? There's one of them. There's so many chord progressions we have and melody ideas. There's probably like 15 versions of one of those songs where it's just like, well, this is a cool chorus and this is a cool verse. What goes together? What can be? Is this, are we trying too hard on this, or what is still cool about it? And we can just riff back and forth, whether what we like and what we don't like, and what really suits the song and suits the players. Like what can Catlin and Zach really take off on? And and honestly, on this record, I mean, everybody I feel like did so good, but even Kyle got really like expressive with his drumming and like wanted to try stuff and pushed himself. And we would cut a song, and there was one of them where he was just like, I have another idea, I can do it better, let me go back in there and play you my idea and stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah, man, you can tell that he was working during COVID, just listening to other stuff and practicing. And I think even some of our ideas then came off of that. Like, okay, well, we can get a groove like this because he's in that mindset. Let's try it. A lot of that.
I think it's the first time for me that, and I've heard people talk about that. I remember when Wilco used to talk about, like, especially for YHF, like they would throw everything but the kitchen sink, including the kitchen sink, at these songs. And then once they would get to a certain point where they have everything in there, they would start to peel things back.
Oh, did we lose Mike?
I think so.
He's going off on this long thing and he is stuck. But yeah, the idea of, I know exactly what he's saying. The idea of like throwing all this stuff at the songs, and then some of that even in mix mode and stuff of like, okay, we don't need this, or pull this back so we can bring this in later, and really build up a chorus or a bridge. We're just having all the issues. There we go. I talk with my hands too much. But yeah,
right now.
Yeah, I know. I've been expecting a text message from him. Yep, he's gonna call back. But yeah, it's that idea of throwing all these ideas at the songs and seeing what fits. And then sometimes when we'd pull back on something, then we'd hear something that we could build off of then, and that becomes a new, harmonized lick behind the vocal and stuff. A lot of counter melodies, would come up from that, just from throwing it out there, then pulling it back.
Yeah.
Rather than, I was to say, I think Steak Night was such a conscious, like, okay, these are your parts and this is what we're going to do. And, and again, I wanted that record to be able to be performed live in its entirety. Those guys sing those harmonies, those are the parts, everybody, there's nothing extra. Now it's like, okay, we got a little extra.
Yeah. What I was going to ask you, Adam, was, obviously traditionally you've been a producer. You, when Mike sends you something over, even if it's that very first thing, do you traditionally, like, are you starting to think sonically, or do you even go into like what you're thinking about, what should be coming lyrically and conceptually, or is it almost always just because you have that producer mindset, that producer brain, where you're kind of thinking sonically first whenever he first sends something over?
I'm always thinking of the song first. The sonic part's the easy part. Like we can come up with what the rest of the band is going to do. It's my mind at first is a fan and like where I think the song could go. So it'd be like he'll send me something. I'm like, holy shit, that is badass. I love where this is going. Okay, what can we build off of? Or if that, that'd be a cool bridge, that'd be a cool chorus. And then like, well, here's my ideas, and okay, your character is going here. Okay, well, here's what I'm going to add to that. Or, and it's like, let's just make a song that and I can't believe I'm going to say this and reference this, but on the Kiss Unplugged, there's some cool interviews. And Paul and Gene are like, no matter what we did with a song, we wanted the song, like, if it could be an anthem acoustically, then we can do whatever. Like, if it's got a sing along melody and we know the crowd can sing along and stuff like that, and they're like, that's all that mattered. If we're sitting there with acoustic guitars and stuff. So it's always one of those, like, if the song stands on its own by yourself, just Mike singing and playing it, then whatever we do in the studio, I mean, that's just going to serve the song with the band serving the song.
Yeah, no, I get that. That makes a lot of sense there. And obviously a lot of songwriters have always pointed back to, does it stand by itself if it's just vocal and guitar or that one instrument kind of thing. Something that's I guess I've been asking more folks about lately is what are those times where you're talking about throwing a lot of the stuff at the wall and you're talking and you're kind of going all these different directions and trying to figure out what's that singular direction you need to go into. At what point or is there any point where you kind of go, oh, maybe we got like two songs here? Does that ever come up where you're like, maybe this is like two ideas, maybe we need to like branch one of these off and make it its own thing? Does that ever come up?
I think there's plenty of songs, and at least in my writing process, where I've had a section that was like, well, maybe this is a totally different song. And that happened to me a lot, that I can tell. I remember on this record, especially with Hour on the Hour, there was certain chord changes I was using a lot. And that song, I started to notice it a little bit too much in the other songs on the record. So I think I was kind of stealing some stuff from some other songs to create other songs that are on the record. So that definitely happened to me. There's probably a couple of songs that are almost identical songs on the album.
I always laughed because I Want to Take You Higher by Sly and the Family Stone. That song is basically on, I think, 2 previous albums in a different form with that one hook. But it's like it took the third version before that hit comes out of it. Like you could hear Sly just rewriting that one song with that one hook on the records. It's not like, they were demos. No, he was just like, okay, we got this cool song. The next record, we can make it cooler. And, he changes it up a little bit. And then by the third record, it's like, I Want to Take You Higher. There's the hit. There's
something's there. We just haven't found it yet.
Yeah, we just haven't found it. And they're doing it right in front of us on record.
What he needed was a quarantine. He would have been able to knock it out in one time.
Yeah. Just keep rewriting and rewriting.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously going to the show aspect, shows are just knocked out all last year. You're talking about how in a lot of ways you weren't even able to properly tour the last 2 records. This record comes up. Not that like you guys don't like playing live and that not that you don't like playing out and touring the world. But do you feel like this was kind of also maybe a necessary break for y'all to, recharge the batteries or anything like that?
I think so. I think we were burning out a little bit. I mean, and we had a lot of stuff on the horizon that was big stuff. And we were going to go to Europe twice. Like, I think, there was some anxiety that I think we all had about how that year was going to play out anyway. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like all the things that we had on the docket to do and make a record, in the middle of all that too, because we were going to have to make a record for the next year. So I think that maybe cooled the jets a little bit to like, And I needed it for personally. I needed it. I mean, my son's 3 years old. He's about to turn 4, so I got to spend like a whole year here. It was a good time for me to be off, and I think it made us reevaluate maybe our tour schedule a little bit, to maybe not have to do as many things as we were doing in the past, and dial it down a little bit and do the things that are really important to us, the shows that are important to us, the stuff that we want to do, rather than just kind of just grinding out doing busy work shows a lot. So I think we reevaluated some things, and I think that was worth it to me.
Yeah, and I think the band needed like a break. I mean, those guys were just going hard at it, and I think we talked about it on the last podcast, but it was what it was like 42, 44 shows from January 1st to February 29th,
Yeah.
and then, it was just like when at first like everybody just thought we were going to take 2 or 3 weeks off. I was like, whoo, we need this. We need
I
this
was
quick
really,
break.
I was really stoked at that point when we thought that was going to last like 2 weeks. We put that last show at Floors. Like, okay,
Yeah.
like 2 weeks and we'll be back in the game. I was like, this will be nice.
Yeah.
And then, it snowballed, but yeah, my liver needed a break. That's for sure.
And
Had to
and
cut back on the drinking.
and then we started Zoom
Yeah, we
gatherings.
got so we're missing each other so much. We were like watching baseball games via Zoom
Yeah.
and getting drunk with each other on Zoom calls, just the band.
And it was hilarious is we'd have these moments where like somebody's TV was like 5 seconds, 8 seconds behind, and so everybody would be like, oh, and then one guy would be like, uh-oh, what happened? We're like, ah, shit, sorry, dude.
It was fun. I enjoyed those. We should do those more often. Just
Yeah,
random.
we just randomly do some Zooms.
Yeah, I never did any Zoom baseball watching or anything like that, but specifically with, I remember like one of my buddies, he's consistently like 20 seconds ahead of me on like Texas Tech basketball or football or something. And then he's always like, oh my God, do you see that? Or like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh God, dude, can you just like pump the brakes for like a minute just to be sure? Cause like I'm just always a little behind, and like, I'm always kind of just in the like feeling the dread no matter what, because
You have to turn your phone off during sporting events now. Like,
Yeah.
like you don't get on
Yeah.
Facebook or something if you don't want to get a spoiler alert for like Game of Thrones or something.
well, dude, like with like I obviously like I'm a huge basketball guy, and the NBA draft was, I guess, last week, and for 364 days, I have notifications on like 4 people on Twitter. Whatever they tweet, I'm gonna get like automatically, because it's always like a breaking trade or some shit. The one day I have to turn them off is on the draft, because they will fucking tweet who the teams are picking like a minute, 2 minutes before
Before.
and it just kind of ruins the TV spectacle of it all. And it's like, you guys are just doing this for internet clout, basically.
Yeah, you want
Because,
to
like,
be first.
It's
First.
a fucking, yeah, it is. It's an arms race between Woj and Shams, and it's got to turn them off. So, yeah, it's I digress though. So obviously this past year you mentioned kind of like those breaks, working on this record. Any other little things that you guys been working on? Adam, you've been doing anything? You have anything else coming out on the horizon?
Well, so Mike and I managed Zach Wilkerson, and then I went into with Space Kernel Management and so I became a partner in Space Kernel Management, which is Adam and JR and myself as the 3 managers. And so we're now in the group with Shooter Jennings and Boland and Quaker City Nighthawks and Lily May. And a lot of cool things have been happening just in that, where I feel like we have a team now, and it's not just me and Mike, and it's not just me and Mike working on the Moonpies and Zach stuff too. It's like we're helping out where we can and stuff like that. And from that, working on a new Zach record, and then I turned around and over quarantine, ended up getting back more into the producing side, which was a lot of fun. But now I'm like also glad to be getting back into like what we do. It's fun to, it was fun to get back and like working on a Midnight River Choir record and a Josh Grider record, and a couple other things I can't talk about yet. But now I'm like, okay, cool. We did these records, they're really cool, and I had a lot of fun. But hey, we're going back out on the road again, and I feel like when we're around each other and we're at our most creative, not even just for the Moonpies thing, but it's just the little things when we're talking about Zach and we're talking about, now these other people, like, we're working on Quaker City Moonpies tours and maybe even doing some shooter Quaker City Moonpies stuff, and going over to Europe together, and doing more of that. And it's like, we're back into that set, like that groove that Mike and I just have, where it's just like, okay, we can just bounce these ideas off, and what works, what doesn't, not even just musically, but from the business side. And so, as fun as it was for that year and mixing some records with some people, I'm ready for the normal again. Let's get back out there and just create, not just create musically, but just create this business.
Yeah, the Quaker City, obviously, there's a little collab on here as well. I'm assuming that was an easy setup right there.
Yeah, man. I'm so glad we did that, just because like we were coming off the best tour of our career with Quaker City, like right when it all went to shit. So like I felt shorted a little bit by that. And because we had such a good groove with those dudes. And I mean, it's a perfect hang for us and the perfect tour for us. So kind of having them on the record is also just like a keep that spark alive situation, so that we can continue to do that in the future. Because I've been missing playing shows with those guys and being on the road with them. So I'm glad that they were able to do it. And it was so easy to set up.
Oh yeah. So easy to set up. It was just, yeah, it was a no-brainer. And it's so funny too, because it's like they were in the situation we are, which everybody was spread out and all over the place and trying to get things done. So it was just like, getting all that, and the way them apart were able to work together, and like they were sending each other what they were doing before they even sent it to us, which that's just a band right there. I love that. And I think that's why we love being with them, not necessarily just because personalities are perfect. We all love to hang, but they're a band like we're a band. They're brothers, we're brothers, and it's just like cool. We all feel the same way and love to hang and love to create. Yeah,
there's something so like kismet about those dudes and us. Like we started around the same time. We've kind of had a similar trajectory. I don't know. Like I've known those guys since we very first started. We used to do Austin Fort Worth trade shows all the time. So, it's cool to be able to still do that this much later and now be actually having successful tours with them and making records with them. So yeah, it's really, I love those dudes.
Yeah. Okay. So like this, I hate going back to this past year, but, a lot of times, a lot of these artists have been going this past year have utilized the time at home to, figure out ways to co-write with people close to them. And I mean, like in an area wise, or in the, maybe not watching baseball games over Zoom, but co-writing over Zoom, that kind of shit. Have you been able to do any of that, or did you kind of keep it more all the songwriting in-house in band, if you will?
I think it was mostly in-house for us. I mean, I was really consumed by this record most of the time. If I wasn't like hanging out with the kid or working on my house or like doing something like that, I was just thinking about this record all the time. I did get a couple in. I wrote one with Brent Cobb that's on his record, and then I wrote another one with Edie that I think cut for this record, but we're gonna maybe use it later.
Yeah,
or something like that. So, and because he told me he was gonna cut it on, because he cut a record at finishing school or whatever, and it's not on there. It's not on that record, I found out. So I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I think I only did like those two. I had a couple opportunities. People were hitting me up more than ever before about it. But I just wasn't in the mindset. I was those two are it's very hard for me to find somebody that I really like to write with that I have that sort of relationship with. I mean, it's easy for me and Adam, you know, and we just bounce back stuff through text message anyway. So I've never been one to like sit there and like sit on a Zoom like this or be in a room with somebody and do it. I need the time. There's something separate. I need to be away from it. So it worked out with those guys because I have a similar relationship and we could, you know, text ideas back and forth and make it happen that way. So I'm glad I did those too. And I'll do more that way, but it's just not really my bag to do it like a sit down and co-write with somebody.
Yeah. The, when people were talking about doing the Zoom thing, Zoom co-writing, I thought, man, you know, I guess that's cool if you probably already know the person and you guys can kind of go back and forth, but you know, especially if it's a new person, you already mentioned that 8-second delay. I mean, like I feel like that just throws in like, you know, this giant, you know, wrench in the situation that can just completely make the entire situation go off the rails pretty quickly. I mean,
with like Edie or Cobb or Adam or anybody like that, like we text enough to where we'll be texting back hooks, you know, randomly, you know, between each other. And so we can kind of just write on our own. And it's like, oh, hey, I wrote something for that hook that we had in a text message 2 months ago or whatever. And then maybe that'll spark something for them to finish that thing or like that. But, you know, I'm also in a text group with Stout, RC, and Johnny Burke. And not a single song has been written in that text group.
Well, you kept on naming people, and I'm like, no, there's not going to be. Oh, man.
You never know when it's going to really take off.
Yeah. I'm in a couple of group texts with Charlie. Actually, you know what? I'm in one with Charlie and RC, and it's just never like
hasn't been very fruitful.
Well, not that they would ever say, hey, Thomas, let's write a song, but you know, it's more like, hey, did you see what somebody said on the internet? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a whole nother text thread that we have going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the, yeah, I always love just that right there. The inside joke kind of, where I'm sure everyone kind of has this now, where you have the meme that is only a meme to like 4 people, and like if you did it, like if you just said it out loud, or if you shared it on social media somewhere, like no one would get it, but like. It's that band, inside of a joke.
Our band text thread is 98% memes.
Yeah.
and like every 3 or 4 meme, there'll be like a van call.
Yeah.
And then it's like meme, van call, Buffalo Wild Wings ?
Yeah.
That's all it is.
I want to break one more time to talk about our pals over at Desert Door and offer up a quick Thomas Mooney's cocktail minute. As I've said probably 100 times by now, by no means am I a seasoned mixologist or bartender, but these have been some of my Desert Door go-tos. For starters, let's just go with the tried and true ranch water. Pop the top off the Topo Chico, take a good swig, now pour in some Desert Door, and top it off by throwing in a few lime wedges. Never fails. This one, it's so simple it probably doesn't even count, but again, pretty foolproof. Do the exact same thing, but get you a Mexican Coca-Cola. I guess you can go with a regular one, but you're really cutting yourself short if you don't opt for the Mexican import variety. All right, here's the change up you've been waiting for. Desert Door Sangria. This one is prime for when you have company coming over and you aren't wanting to just be over there making 6 different drinks at a time. What you'll need is some Desert Door, obviously, a bottle of red wine, honey, boiling water, apple cider vinegar, some cinnamon sticks, a couple of apples, and some thyme sprigs. I know that may sound intimidating, but trust me, it's worth the prep, and honestly, it's pretty easy. For starters, get you a punch bowl, add that honey, those cinnamon sticks, and the boiling water together. Now you're going to want to stir that all up and let it cool down for about an hour or so. Remember, patience is a virtue. Once that's done, add some Desert Door and stir vigorously. Now add the wine, the cider, and the vinegar, and continue stirring until it's equally mixed. Now slice those apples up and toss them in. Put in those thyme sprigs as well. Now you can pour that over some ice and you have a mighty fine sangria. Chef's kiss. Anyway, those have been some of my favorite go-tos as of late. And remember, Desert Door is as versatile as vodka and more refined, smooth, complex, and intriguing than tequila. It's rich and balanced, and whether you decide to keep it simple or want to experiment, Desert Door is that perfect Texas spirit. There's plenty more recipes over at desertdoor.com as well. Check out the show notes for a link. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Adam, what shirt are you wearing?
I'm wearing the Valvoline Vagabonds.
Oh, the
shirt.
cease and desist shirt. I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you made it win and got like a real Valvoline shirt.
No, I wish I would.
So much cooler.
But yeah, this band got a cease and desist for this Valvoline logo.
The cease and desist on merch shirts is always because obviously there's 1,000 shirts out there that all the great ones are almost always based off something else. I instantly go to like the Bauman, like Houston Oilers shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about that one a lot. I can't believe he hasn't gotten one. And I mean, I like all the stuff that like Vinyl Ranch makes, like most of those are rips. And like my wife, Chase, hates those rip things. Like, she's a graphic designer. She doesn't want to like rip anything off. Everything that she does is very original or whatever. But like, if she sees one of those, it immediately is nope. That's not
Yeah.
See, I like the homage in something, So there's like that little bit of that homage.
Well, obviously we do a lot of homages,
but
not on our t-shirt design.
Yeah. I don't know, in 10 years, I'll write the expose on. Actually, all these Moonpie shirts are based off of these 80s country shirts, these tour shirts of
Chase
the Bellamy brothers. And
Chase has a thing that she has basically compiled like a list of all of the Charlie Crockett album covers and where each of those album covers was basically ripped from.
Where
and
it
then,
comes
like,
from.
Yeah, because they're all identical. It's crazy. Like if you see them next to each other, it's insane, man. Every single one of them.
Yeah, I'm specifically thinking of the Valley one that is very much. Who was it? What record is it? I'm blanking on what it is, but it's like, that one specifically was like, holy shit, this is exactly. I don't think it was a Paycheck record, but it was something.
I know he's done that I know he's done that like Haggard one, the one that has like the kind of rectangle thing with like the sunset deal on it. That one, the newest one, I think is like a Webb Pierce one or something like that, the Nashville Sound one or whatever that record is. Yeah, it's pretty insane. I guess it's the same guy that does all those album covers. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, a lot of that font is just like classic. Like that's what I love about a lot of those old record covers is like the font is so specific and unique, where I don't know, like if this is probably something way too nerdy, people are gonna like turn off right here, is like the invention of new fonts, or have we all kind of just gotten to this like homogenized thing where we only use 300 fonts or what? I don't even know what. I couldn't even throw out a number, but I will say that no, I don't have it in here. The Texas Monthly cover with Leon Bridges, that font that they use on the front cover, I absolutely love.
I haven't seen that one. I'll have to check it out.
Go look it out. I don't know. I don't think I have it in here.
Yeah, Chase is like a font fanatic, and she builds like a lot of like everything she uses for us is pretty much built, like the logo stuff that she builds for us is all she builds it herself. But yeah, she knows, you can show her anything and she will tell you the exact name of that font, like what's it called. Yeah, it's crazy. She is an encyclopedia of fonts. It's insane.
Yeah. There's that I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore. There was a documentary called Helvetica about Helvetica because it became like the most popular
Really?
most popular font in the world. And if you look, you're gonna see it like everywhere. And that's their entire point of the documentary was like how it was developed and how like it's very, very readable. So like it's using a whole lot of logos. And I think I don't necessarily think it's street signs that people use, but it's in a lot of like billboard kind of stuff. But because it's so straight and clean and sharp, basically.
I saw, I guess it was like the anniversary of that George Strait Troubadour record or something recently. And that album cover, it just says George Strait Troubadour, but it's like Times New Roman, or it's like it's just like
just so simple.
Like, it's like a picture of George's face and somebody typed his name on top of it.
Dude, you know what I've noticed, and this is one of those things where I'm like, I'm not necessarily about it, and that's they've added Comic Sans to Instagram. Yeah. So a lot of people will share, like they'll share something to their stories, and like if I start naming the people, you're gonna go, oh yeah, there's a commonality between them all being like, 45-year-old dads, basically.
It's a personality type that uses Comic Sans.
And it's just like, dude, the first time I guess like Comic Sans went into like meme form was whenever LeBron like left from Cleveland to Miami, and the Cleveland owner wrote like a fucking hate letter to LeBron, and it was in Comic Sans.
It's beautiful.
Dude's a fucking billionaire, and is like is the default on his Microsoft Word is Comic Sans.
It's Comic Sans.
So yeah. I don't know, but yeah, I promise like the new slang stuff is not going to be any of this. The promo for this episode will be in Comic Sans.
Comic Sans, or now it will be.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been great talking with y'all. We'll go ahead and end it around here.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Mooney. I appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, Thomas.
Hey, I want to say real quick that picture you have hanging behind you with the two cowboy guys.
Yeah.
That thing that it used to hang in that little ghost town outside of Austin. J. Lorraine Ghost Town. And we filmed the Sunday music video there. And that picture is in that video. It's hanging on the wall in there. And we used to think it was me and Preston. It looked just like me and Preston in that video. We were like wearing the exact same thing. And so seeing it now, I like having flashbacks about that. So just letting you know.
Yeah, dude, I found that one at like a garage sale or something like that. And one of the main reasons I got it was obviously it's fucking hilarious. But the other reason is because my grandpa used to have a bunch of them hanging in his vet clinic. And the one that I remember specifically that was just I still laugh about it is so it's that the older cowboy guy standing there, and there's a veterinarian, and they're standing on a little bit of a fence, and there's a horse behind the fence, and this horse is like fucking skin and bones. And the commentary or the quote behind it or below it is something to the effect of like, I don't know, Doc. I woke up this morning and came out here and she was just like this, like. So, yeah.
So that's the only one you have? You don't have the whole collection of them?
No, I wish I fucking did. That's all this room would be right here. Would be just
we're going to find them.
Yeah, I'm going to start getting them now.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, no, that's the good stuff right there.
Well, that was a good one. I'm glad I got to see that today.
Yeah. Trying to see what else you guys can see. Obviously, I got like the Guy Clark. I'm bad at pointing right here. The Guy Clark photo right here.
Yeah.
I got Terry Allen's Rules, which is like right next to the photo.
Oh yeah.
And like that was this thing like he wrote it on a typewriter, like the rules for creating stuff, and it's just like the most ridiculous list of like, drive fast cars to get like good stories and shit like
Yeah,
that.
I think I remember you posted these before.
Yeah,
Or something
yeah.
like that. It was awesome.
Man, I completely forgot. We could say thank you for the Garth Brooks vinyl box set, buddy.
Yeah.
When you said you had extra ones, I was like, dude, I'm on this. Venmo, baby.
Here's mine right here.
Yeah, mine's in well, I'm in Darby and I have this office in Quanah, and it's sitting there in the other room to be played. And I emailed both of you guys the fan mixes of that live record, which our mastering engineer Eric, an independent mastering, he did all that. So he does all the stuff for Garth and everything, but he was just like, hey, here's the fan mixes with the crowd on one side and the band on the other, which is just
that stuff is
so
insane.
insane.
I understand why they didn't use it, because it's really crazy to listen to.
Yeah.
Because everything is delayed, on the right side, it's the crowd or whatever. So you hear like the vocal read, the band slap off of the wall.
Yeah.
It's really strange. I like it. I mean, I like Garth live anyway, but that's a really interesting sounding recording.
It's a unique way to do it. That's for sure.
It's cool.
The thing about Garth, about in any of these like box sets that just gets me is, dude, like this is obviously a box set, but this is like only half the catalog, like half the 90s catalog. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Like
he always leaves you wanting more. That's the thing about Garth. Like he went away forever. You couldn't find his music. Like you never hear Garth Brooks songs. Like they don't play. Like you never. How often do you hear a Garth Brooks song on the radio? Not very often.
Mm-hmm.
Like he never gets any play. I mean, he doesn't have streaming. When he tried to do his own streaming thing for a while, that didn't fly. So like he's always like he keeps his music mysterious. I don't know how that guy like decided to do that, because he has such a huge catalog, but you just can't find it anywhere unless you buy his legacy box set, and then you only get a piece of it.
Yeah.
Then Legacy 2 will come out.
Yeah.
But it's obviously there's all these like Walmart exclusive shit.
Oh yeah.
Where I can't, like there was a box set that my mom bought me a couple Christmases back that had a bunch of like demos from like but it was like the first 2 records only kind of thing. Like only demos from those, like nothing extra from anywhere else. And I know he did like a box set of like all those covers that he did. But
I used to have that thing that was like it was a box set, but it was like all those live, when he was doing those live shows, just him and an acoustic guitar, all those things. And that was pretty cool. And I don't remember, that was like, that was only CDs. I think it was like 4 or 5 CDs in that box. I think those were just tapings from that show, from what I remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This one right here, I don't know if you caught the story, Mike, but I had seen on Twitter where like BJ Barham had said, like somebody had tweeted at him saying that these were at Dollar General. So I was like, what the fuck? And so I started looking it up, and they were released like 3 or 4 years ago to Dollar General. And so I was like, well, okay, $50 is like not bad at all.
Yeah.
Like a box set. So then it's like, okay, start looking for all the Dollar Generals in this area in Lubbock. And there's probably, like any place, there's fucking 20 too many too. But but it was like, do I just start going to all of them, or like, what do I do? Do I need to print out the map and X them off as I go? What kind of shit?
This one.
I'm like heading out to Levelland, and there's a fucking Dollar General in the middle of nowhere, and it's kind of a relatively new one. And I was like, well, I'll fucking just stop in real quick. I stop in. I'm looking around. I look by like the DVD section because I just figured they'd be up there. I look up, and there's like a stack of like fucking 4 of them, but right up there. And I'm like, you could just tell they were like collecting dust as well. Like
not even on display.
Yeah, just fucking went ahead and bought all 4, and like they ended up being like $29 or something like that. So yeah,
that's incredible, man. I don't know who decided to do that, but that's genius.
Yeah.
I need to get a Dollar General distribution deal. Is what I need next.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah,
walk in every Dollar General. There's all our records.
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah, one of those. Just a display.
Yeah,
with a cardboard cutout. That whole thing.
We can have a listening station. We'll just put like a Discman there with a set of headphones.
Yes.
You can buy the Discman also for $1.
The Discman, yeah. The now that's the struggle that kids these days do not understand with the Discman is like you had to like carry it like this basically anywhere you were going.
The 10-second like pre-roll for skipping and stuff that never worked.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then you have the cassette adapter for your car. And then so you can listen to CDs in your car.
Some Velcro on your dash where you can Velcro the thing.
Put it on there. Man.
Mm-hmm.
That's for real.
The good old days, yeah. Does that truck your 85 have Velcro for the
No, the guy put in an aftermarket stereo in there. But I'm looking at this one. I know a guy that owns like a old Bronco, and he found a company that makes the stereos that fit in that spot, and they look identical to the factory one, except they're like XM capable and like all that. Like it's really it's awesome, man. Because you wouldn't, if you just looked at it, you wouldn't be able to tell that it wasn't the factory stereo. But you can do XM and Bluetooth and everything on that thing. So I'm trying to find one of those for my truck.
I had briefly in college, I had a 77 Chevy, and it had an aftermarket stereo that was AM, 8-track, and CB radio made by Cobra. And you just like clicked it over, and it had the one mono speaker in the dash. Yeah. Fucking awesome.
CB radio. Yeah.
AM 8-track CB radio.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Thanks, Mooney. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that is it for this episode. Tomorrow, August 10th, check out One to Grow On by Mike and the Moonpies. Go stop on by the merch store. Be sure to subscribe. Check out our presenting partners over at Desert Door, Charlie Stout Photography, and the Blue Light Live. And yeah, I'll see y'all later this week for another episode.